Hello, I'm Dr. Amy Smith, Chief Learning Officer of StraighterLine, and with me today is...
Burck Smith. I am the founder of StraighterLine.
So Burck, for StraighterLine, what's its primary objective? What does it seek to accomplish?
Since 2008, we have helped hundreds of thousands of students lower the cost and risk of earning a degree. At the same time, we help colleges increase their yield and increase the persistence of their students. We do this by offering low-cost, low-risk coursework, typically general education courses, typically in what we call pathway programs or in private labeled academies or students taking them in onesies and twosies. The students can access our courses either directly from our website, StraighterLine.com, or we work with colleges where they put our course under their brand to help them with their own students, as well as with employers who want low-cost entry pathways for their own employees. The students that we typically work with are today known as non-traditional students. These are the students that are, probably the best way to describe them is what they are not. Is that they are not 18 to 22-year-olds on a residential campus. Now, not exclusively, but the non-traditional student, adult student, is the student who we typically work with.
Can you talk a little bit about StraighterLine's scope? Where does it operate in terms of regional, national, et cetera? And just tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, so we're a national provider. We have direct articulation agreements with about 150 colleges, but there are probably 2,000 colleges our students have told us have awarded credit for our coursework. In any given state, probably 80% of the colleges have taken our credit in some way, shape, or form. But what's been really interesting over the years is how we've developed what we call academy programs, but they could be called pathways or bridges or whatever it is. And it's ways to work in conjunction with a college as opposed to separate from it. And the problem we are solving is if you think of a college as having a funnel of students from interested student at the top to graduate at the bottom, students are falling out of that funnel all the way down. So your interested student may not apply, your applicant may not enroll, your enrollment may drop out, your dropout might then need to come back in some way, shape, or form. And colleges don't have great answers for these students when they fall out of that funnel. It's usually, hey, exhort them to come back, or suggest they go somewhere else. So what we do in our programs, our academy programs, we work with the college to offer a handful of courses, low-cost, low-risk ways that students can sort of solve their problem, whatever that is, whether it's they need to prove themselves to enter the school, need to get credits prior to entry, need to ease themselves back in, learn how to be a student. Those are the sorts of problems we can solve for a college on our pathway programs.
Can you talk a little bit about some of StraighterLine's proudest accomplishments? And as I say that and think about that, specific moments or people or populations that StraighterLine has really served?
Yeah, so you start with the students. We have dozens of anecdotes and case studies on our website about the students that we've helped. And it's really heartwarming. I won't go into it on this video. You can find it yourself, but it's the sort of thing that makes you get up in the morning. And then working with our client schools under these academy programs has been really rewarding. In Louisiana, we work with a program called Compete Louisiana to try to bring back students that have dropped out, some college no degree student. And we're probably half a dozen other colleges we're currently working with under these private labeled academy programs. In 2008, the Obama administration ran an experimental program called EQUIP, and the goal of that was to bring some of these new non-college providers of college coursework under the umbrella of financial aid. And we were doing a project with Dallas County Community College District and SACS, and the DOE had to approve it. We were one of 8 programs selected, but the only one to actually start something, and that was very exciting. Many other things, we're not accredited ourselves, not allowed to be because we don't offer degrees, we just offer coursework. So we can't get that accreditation kind of imprimatur of quality. So we do all sorts of other things. We accumulate good housekeeping seals of approval. We've been ACE credit recommended at least a dozen times, maybe 15 or 20 at this point. In addition to the Obama EQUIP program, we have outcome data about the impact on yield and persistence of our coursework at colleges. Lots of different things over, at this point, 13 years to be proud of.
And so over those 13 years, what has inspired StraighterLine to approach the work in the way that we do?
Students dropping out and stopping out is a terrible problem. These days, only, less than 60% of the students are graduating within 1.5 times their allotted time. And sometimes they might drop out because of academics, but more often it's life. Life has gotten in the way. It's finances, it's health, it's family, it's kids. And so what we said is, hey, online delivery presents interesting opportunities to solve some of these problems. And one of my favorite statistics is any given day, roughly a quarter of our enrollments are re-enrollments. And so these are students that took a couple courses, stopped, dealt with whatever's going on in their life, and then came back and took a few more courses. Or stopped midway through a course, dealt with whatever's going on in their life, and then came back. And that's fine. That's exactly how the modern learner learns today. But if that happened at a college, that'd be a dropout. And that student would have forfeited the tuition they paid. They'd have a black mark on their transcript. They'd put Title IV at risk, and they'd have the psychological damage of having not succeeded. So by being able to create ways that students can solve their problems as, I don't know, call it what you want, maybe a rest stop on their education highway or education journey, we're able to re-enroll them at the colleges with whom we work. So that's on the student side. On the economics and kind of the design of the program, we realized early on that online has different characteristics than face-to-face delivery. The first is that it's cheaper. There are no fixed costs. There are no classrooms, there are no parking lots, there are no sports teams, there are no cafeterias. And there's lots of other things, but just start off, it's just cheaper. And if it's cheaper to deliver, you should be able to price it less, right? But colleges typically don't. And so that's where a partner like StraighterLine can come in and help. Second, it can be more flexible. You don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time. You can be online, and you can move at your own pace. And if you can move at your own pace, you can price it differently. So instead of having a fixed price, start here and finish here, you can say, pay as you go. And what that does is lower the risk of starting college. So for many students, college is a really high-risk endeavor. You're basically saying, I don't know, I'm going to take this leap, and I'm going to pay a lot of money, and I hope it works out. And then it doesn't for a lot of people. But in our model, you start with a free trial, and then you pay a sort of small monthly fee. And if you're successful, awesome, off you go and get credit. If you're not successful, you haven't spent much. And so another kind of analogy I like to think about is that in December, you're really psyched to get in shape. January 1 rolls around, you sign up with a gym. January 31st rolls around, you maybe weren't quite as motivated as you thought, and you really hope you didn't pay for the annual contract. And that's kind of, we enable students to not have to pay for the annual contract to start out.
That sounds very familiar. Yeah. Thank you. Lastly, can you talk a little bit about StraighterLine in terms of its impact? And what impact has it had?
And I've talked about kind of the qualitative anecdotal stories, but we do see pretty dramatic improvements in yield and persistence with colleges with whom we have programs. So one school, they send the students that they can't provide admit decisions to. They let these students take about 4 courses, a couple in sort of math and writing, and then a couple in the area that is of interest to them. If the students are successful, they get admission and get credit. And if they're not successful, well, again, they haven't spent much. It's a monthly, sort of low monthly subscription. And what they have seen is a little less than a third of the students referred to the program have enrolled in the college. Most interesting is when they do get there, they persist at greater rates than their peers. So they're able to enroll a third of their non-admits who then do better than their peers. And at one level, that's awesome. And at another level, we should say, hey, that's not that surprising, because it conforms with what we know about other things in higher ed. So students who come to college with prior learning credit, they tend to persist at greater rates than their peers. Transfer students persist at greater rates than their peers. So basically, if you demonstrate success before you go to college, you're more likely to be successful, which is kind of a no-brainer. So that's kind of the thing we're most proud of. Another thing that's been very interesting and I admit was surprising, we measure student satisfaction. So we use a measure called Net Promoter Score, NPS. It's kind of a universal measure that different companies use in different industries to measure their customer happiness. And ours is good. It's right in line with your typical service companies. When we put our program under a college's brand, that NPS doubled. So same courses, same content, same people, but students are basically twice as happy. And you don't want to think the brand has that much of an impact, but it does. And what it says, at least to me, we don't have exact answers, but is that you're reducing the cognitive dissonance, the cognitive load for students when they have failed something at the school. They haven't been admitted, they dropped out, whatever it is. And if you as a school say, go somewhere else and figure it out, you're creating this real burden for the student about where should they go, what should they pay, what counts for credit, how do I do this, on top of having not succeeded in the first place. And if you can keep that cognitive dissonance down by saying, hey, here's our program. You didn't fail, you just haven't succeeded yet. come here, take the courses. We have vetted it. We trust this. You get credit for it. They've kind of solved all those problems. It makes it a way better experience for the student. So that was a real aha moment for us a few years ago as we started doing this with colleges under their brands, and that's kind of amazing to see that you can have that kind of impact on student success and student behavior.
Wonderful. Last thought. So thank you for sharing StraighterLine, its history, its work, what we do, and its impact.
Well, thank you.